In today's ever-changing world, with new technologies, new therapies, many of us increase our longevity,
longevity,
our lifespan. But what does that really mean, and at what expense? And most importantly, for those who watch this channel, we're very much focused on hormone replacement therapy, and in particular testosterone replacement therapy. What is the role of testosterone replacement therapy, or as we like to call it now, testosterone therapy, and longevity and wellness and improved health span? How does it all relate? So we're going to talk about it today in a very lively discussion that you don't want to miss. So keep watching. How do you measure the rate in which you age? There are different biomarkers, there are different tools. Some tools are a bit controversial. Some doctors will say it's just a proxy, it's not reliable from time to time. But the question is, in what treatments, particularly testosterone replacement therapy, testosterone therapy, what will these do to the measures of your aging? So we're here today with Tony Pemberton. He has a company called Epigenetics that helps focus on and helps train you to be reducing or increasing your methylation, improving your epigenetic health. Of course, this is an area of science that's still unraveling. There are companies called True Diagnostics, that provide a testing kit. I've used it myself to give you a little measure. You might be aging. It gives you these epigenetic clocks that tell you how old you are biologically compared to epigenetically, and also what is your rate of aging. So if you've seen Brian Johnson, we've got a very own UK version of Brian Johnson here to discuss all these things, and also what comes about as far as your day-to-day lifestyle in order to try to look young. So I don't know if anyone wants to guess, Tony, how old Tony is.
I'm 39.
So he's 39. I think he looks great, Tony, at 39. And Tony's been very focused on, certain modalities, certain lifestyle interventions, certain supplements, and maybe the medications that he takes to try to stay young. And you can find all about it in, I think he's got a newsletter as well on his website. He lists all the things that he's tried. Like I say, he's very similar to Brian Johnson. So Tony, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your endeavor of trying to, and essentially why did you start with this? What was the desire to try to improve your longevity, and then what are you trying to do with it essentially long term?
Well, thanks for having me back on, Mike. And yes, I mean, predominantly, I think maybe it's a vanity thing to start with. I didn't really see the link between, like health span and lifespan. I used to think, just live fast, die young. I didn't realize you'd have maybe 20 plus years of just poor health at the end of your life. You don't just fall over dead at 65 and make a pretty corpse. So that kind of led me on to the whole health span journey, and then trying to optimize things and just working out what actually moves the needle, because there's so many gimmicks out there. People doing whatever it might be, cryotherapy or NAD plus infusions. I mean, do they move the needle? So I was trying to work out for what actually makes a difference at the best possible price, just value engineering my kind of supplement protocol.
So, you see, you don't have the resource of Brian Johnson, who's this billionaire, tech industry mogul who focused on longevity. So that makes good sense that you try to do what's going to be cost effective, but also effective. You talked about certain gimmicks and trends. I think we talked earlier about the whole ice bath thing, which was very popular last year and the year before, maybe fading out because these are just kind of trends in social media, but also because the science doesn't always say it's going to do what it says on the tin, as far as maybe get a bit of BDNF increase and some other benefits, but it may also decrease muscle mass, right? So that's another example. So one of the first, I guess we can call it the gateway into longevity as far as treatment modalities is testosterone. Was that one of the first things that you did, or was that?
Yeah, and I think I'd say that even kickstarted my journey, even because the effect, because I went from, I think my free testosterone was around the 15 mark, something like that. And then, sorry, not free, total testosterone.
So just so everyone knows, 15 nanomoles per liter in the UK, we use nanomoles per liter. We know from the international study for aging male, that symptoms of testosterone can start as low as 15 nanomoles per liter. But you're right, Tony, about the free testosterone is really a better indicator.
That was even disproportionately low even compared to that, and it was like 0.26.
Okay. that society would say anything less than 0.347 is really indicative of low testosterone.
Yeah, and then so that's, I think something like testosterone replacement therapy can really, all these supplements on their own, one particular supplement doesn't necessarily, you don't feel a difference. But when you go from being low testosterone to, high normal and to optimal range, you feel it, like it's a very noticeable improvement. And that's why I think it can really kickstart your journey into other areas of wellness. When you have low testosterone, for myself, I, had low libido, low motivation. I think I was just before I turned 35, late 34. And then I was even thinking in those years leading up to it, I was even thinking about semi-retiring. I was just literally had no motivation for anything. And then within weeks of optimizing my testosterone, that just done a complete U-turn. So I think very much it just, and then you can argue, so testosterone definitely has healthspan properties, but possibly even lifespan too. When you look at centenarians and their testosterone endogenous levels, they tend to be on the higher side. So maybe that's an association with positive lifestyle factors involved in having a healthy testosterone levels. I don't know, but certainly it's not a bad thing having a higher endogenous.
And that's also where, there's so many facets to testosterone treatment where blood tests, the reference range, goes up to 30 or 34 nanomoles per liter. But in reality, we see people, healthy men in the population who aren't on testosterone treatment, who have levels of 36, 38, 40 even, or even higher if they're really healthy and they're young. And this is why sometimes looking at reference ranges can be misleading, because the reference range is only showing the sickest of the sick and not what an optimized healthy person would have. Unfortunately, people from the general public and even GPs will look at your blood tests and say, oh, well, that's out of range, you're too high, or you've somehow been overtreated, when in reality, your levels are bang on healthy. But then it's not just that one level, right? We would talk about free testosterone, SHBG, and it even goes beyond levels. It goes into what's your androgen receptor receptivity is like. If you have a sensitive androgen receptor, you might not need as much testosterone as the average person. But you're right, generally a higher level is going to make a difference. So what is a role of testosterone? So I was going to ask you, we talk about moving the needle in health, and a good graphic is what you guys have in True Diagnostics. It's literally like a needle that shows you what your pace of aging is. Had you started before you around the time you did testosterone, before you did testosterone into this True Diagnostics?
No, I was doing a epigenetic test before that, and then but I'd already started a TRT before that even.
Okay, so you don't have a baseline to know what you were before
Not for
TRT.
myself, but I've seen other clients of mine that have gone from being natural onto testosterone replacement therapy, and have actually seen their pace of aging come down. Obviously, no one I speak to ever just does one thing. Some people keep it more simple than others, but generally there's an association there, and there's other lifestyle factors too, I'm sure, involved, but it certainly does go in the right direction when they go from being low testosterone up into that optimal range.
Well, like you, I think, said to me in the past, and lots of other clients as well, you don't have any energy, you can't do anything, you start in testosterone, and many of our patients, and we encourage all of our patients to start doing something, watch what you eat, exercise, do things that are going to be good for your mental health, get enough sleep. So you did those things, right, off the back of testosterone. So I can see what you're saying. How do you just have one method? But if the testosterone is the bit that gets you to do the other healthy bits, to me, that's all around very beneficial, and it's really the testosterone that's driving it. But you would argue on biomarkers like what's measured in the True Age test, the big comprehensive one you said, are looking at kind of methylation factors, right? Epigenetics. And one of the areas that we know that testosterone, you're probably aware of this as well, is testosterone can lower IL-6 and some other inflammatory cytokines. So can you tell us a little about what your test does for I think IL-6, and there's some other cytokines that are measured as well?
Yeah, so it measures, if we were talking about the pace, obviously that's just measuring a pace of aging. It does break it down into 19 biomarkers involved in that. And then True Age Complete test has it breaks down your inflammation report. So it breaks it down into IL-6. And this is DNA methylation, IL-6 as well as C-reactive protein. And it's a much more stable reading, because if you ever do a blood test for C-reactive protein, it fluctuates all the time, doesn't it? So Unless it's chronically really, really high.
But it's also important too, the C-reactive protein. But you're right, if you're hospitalized, if you have a serious infection, your C-reactive protein goes up. And then once that issue goes away, the C-reactive protein goes back down. If you're not having any of those acute issues and you measure C-reactive protein, and for the most of the tests that you do, it's down, great. But on the DNA methylation side, I believe your test is also showing a different point of view.
Yeah, like a long-term trend of it, basically. Yeah, so it's quite handy in that regard. Yeah,
But which can also make it harder to move the needle. I suppose it's a little bit like the difference between measuring, and it's a really, really bad analogy, but it might be understandable to measure glucose, fasting glucose, or measuring HbA1c.
people make that reference all the time. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, so it's different tools for different scenarios, I guess. Yeah,
But because it takes a long time to move the needle on HbA1c, even though you might have really good fasting glucose, even fasting insulin, even, and sometimes it can be suddenly a bit higher for some reason.
but yeah, on that topic, even the denudin paste, it tracks 19 different biomarkers, and then even one of them is HbA1c, but hip to waist ratio, BMI, cardiovascular fitness, like your respiratory fitness, even your FEV1, how much air you can breathe out in 1 second. So I mean, some of these factors could be involved. Yeah, if you're on testosterone, then leukocyte telomere length as well, and even that's part of the actual denudin paste. It measures telomere length too as part of it.
And we know that testosterone may influence the amount of telomerase and potentially your telomere length. Some people will knock association studies, but there are some studies linking testosterone treatment and testosterone levels, telomeres. So, and for those who don't know, telomeres are the end of the chromosomes. There's sometimes an analogy is like end of your shoelace, the haps on your shoelace. And as those as you get older, those wear down, and then you start having some diseases that are tied to aging as a result.
Exactly. Yeah.
So kind of falling apart.
Yeah, and it's a poor indicator, say, of biological age, using it as a one-off marker, telomere length. But as a relative thing, it's quite helpful, because if you see sudden shortening of telomeres, that's a signal of oxidative stress. If they get really short, it can be a sign of cellular senescence. So it's just more of a relative to why I use the telomere length, because that's another one in that pace of aging test. Is it does individual telomere length as well as part of the pace of aging.
And that's really what's so frustrating in this. I followed for years the longevity, they used to call it anti-aging. There's many different terms for it. Now we'd like to call it Healthspan. Debate we talked about that during lunch was,
Sure.
And like I said in the opening, would you rather add years to your life or life to your years? I'm not looking to be 120. They used to say, oh, well, I'll be 150 or, but as I've gotten older, I just want to have really good quality of life. I want to be healthy. Of course, there's a bit of a Dorian Gray,
Sure, yeah.
story of Dorian Gray, the portrait of Dorian Gray, that, he didn't want to age. I think there's a little of that in all of us to just stay young and healthy. Of course, the story didn't turn out so what was it, Oscar Wilde? Was it his novel?
I think so. Yeah.
So I always found that fascinating. And some people I've talked to are more like, whatever happens. I'm not going to live past this age, and that's that. But there's a lot of us who do want to live healthy longer, because one, there's no point of living a long time and then you're incapacitated or you can't do the things that you like to do. That makes it really hard on your mental health as well as your physical health. And we know testosterone, some people will say that you look younger, but then I've heard other people that say you may look older.
Sure, yeah.
And
It's also all a happy medium, isn't it? Yeah.
and so my theory about the looks that appear from TRT is the testosterone will masculinize you. Okay. So if you've gone from a very boyish look because you didn't have enough testosterone, the masculinization of your face, that can happen depending on how deficient you are, for how long, or whether or not you fully developed in puberty because you were deficient then. For some men, that's a godsend. That's like, wow, I'm a real man now, right? I went from being a boy, even into my early 20s or 30s, and now I'm a real man because I look like a man. I've got facial hair now when I didn't have it before. And so, but others may see, my face is a bit more chiseled, right? My jaw's a bit more chiseled. I mean,
Even voice too, I believe.
yeah, voice goes down.
Yeah.
And some people in the looks maxing community even are trying to achieve that strong chin, which partly testosterone does. So I think when it comes to looks, that's subjective. Would you not say, to what you think is attractive or how you want to appear to the world?
Exactly. And I think Alexander Pasiotopoulos, he does HRT, he has a clinic, and then he was talking about people being on it for over 30 years, and he seems to think that even like their skin's better being on their testosterone for that period of time. So it's kind of associations, maybe the estrogen levels are a little bit higher too, and then that could, downstream, improve joint health, skin health maybe. But yeah, I think
I'm coming up to nearly 30 years on TRT. I'll be 51 in May. And I don't know how's my skin. I don't moisturize like you though, Tony. I don't have was it Origins or one of the, what's the product that you use for moisturizing?
I use a Vino cream, and then Kiehl's, I've started using that as well, yeah.
So, I mean, I've always thought if I can fix my skin, I want to fix it from the inside out. Obviously there can be some short-term benefits of, no one likes a dry skin, and I do use some moisturizer today, but in general, that's always been my focus. Like, how can we get the body
100%? Yeah, I'm exactly the same. Yeah, and that's why just tracking biomarkers even related to skin. So even whether it be your HbA1c or fasting insulins, that's obviously, but even downstream things like glutathione levels, monitoring that, many different biomarkers, even just your vitamin C level monitoring. That's another one. Obviously, that's essential for production of collagen. So
glutathione, interestingly enough, it's a strong antioxidant, yeah, and it can also help boost your immune system. And there are some tools that can boost glutathione, and I'm not really looked into the connection with testosterone treatment. I don't know if you're familiar, but there's something called NAC.
Oh yeah.
I think you use NAC at various dosages, and something I think we should tell people watching is there is some data, scant data, but data nonetheless on NAC. Obviously, improving glutathione, I think that's a known. Also can break up mucus. In some countries, it's approved as a drug, NAC, and for a while the FDA tried to get it removed as a supplement, but they've seen the error of their ways and have stopped. But in some people, and it's very important for men on testosterone therapy to know this, for some people, I think I'm one of them, because I've tested this several times now, too much NAC for you, and I was only doing about 900 milligrams, because that's the size it can come in, or 600 milligrams. We have this available at the pharmacy, 600 milligrams of NAC to pure encapsulations in the UK. The 900 milligram dose anyway had increased my hemoglobin, red blood cells, and then as a result, the hematocrit. And I know this, I was doing it for about 10 days. I stopped taking it for 10 to 15
and when it normalized then.
and it normalized by that quickly. So either it's causing an error in the lab analyzer, which I don't think, or it is triggering the body to increase. I have seen movements before very quickly in hematocrit, hemoglobin, etc. So there was a paper that came out, I think it's one of the Science Direct journals, that showed, this was years ago before NAC became popular, that it may cause some subtle hypoxia within the blood vessels, which will then trigger the body to want to make more hemoglobin, red blood cells, and compensate for it. So I think people need to watch or cycle or take it maybe once or twice a week to get that glutathione boost if you're prone to this. And I'm not really even sure if glutathione itself has the same effect, or if it's just the NAC as almost a precursor. So anyway, I thought that would be interesting to share with people watching, because a lot of people don't know. So I would say for testosterone therapy patients, you consistently try having good healthy levels of testosterone, if they're not too high, if you're also taking NAC, not even thinking, because NAC is also good for boosting your dopamine, your mood, which then can translate into better libido. NAC is really good, not to mention the healthy glutathione. But if you're consistently having the high hemoglobin hematocrit, and you are taking that supplement, maybe you stop it for a while.
Yeah, too much.
Because what really is a bit unfortunate is, it's one of the things to say, oh, I may have overdone the testosterone therapy because, you're on this dose, you feel better, your doctor's approved it. Sometimes with injections, even when you're on a really good, healthy, minimal dose,
What people's hematocrit goes up.
Go up. Yeah. What people need to realize is the hematocrit is a calculation of the two factors. It's of your red blood cell count and the mean cell volume. And so sometimes that could also be skewed by how long it takes to go from the phlebotomist to the lab. And the longer that occurs, then the MCV goes up, and that goes into the calculation times the red blood cell. But if you're seeing a high red blood cell, like I saw, and normal MCV and slightly high hemoglobin, and then the calculation for hematocrit comes out high, then is probably the NAC in that case. In those cases, it's probably easier to stop or be minimal with the supplementation of NAC. But it's important to know, because and we said we don't like this term, but some of us who are into this longevity and aging, some get the title, the label biohacker.
Yeah, and I hate that term as well.
And in some ways, it was a justification or a cover for people trying all kinds of things. But I don't think it really represents the full population of people who just want to be healthy.
Yeah.
And they're very excited about living at this time when we have the tools and the knowledge, at least to do better than, people before us, right? But let's not pretend this is not something new. In the 1990s, there were people that were trying to, be anti-aging. If you like content like this, please do subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you want to get information, we'll leave links below to Tony's company and doing his epigenetic links, as well as where you can order blood tests and certain biomarkers that you can look at either for your testosterone level or general wellness that we do at Balance by Hormone. So again, thanks for watching and see you next time, and to your health.